the culture of the hip hop was very. I thought it was. This reminds me of Alex trying to relate Naruto's and all these things. Like I can give you like I can relate all these anime to like Bible. You name it. Like so I feel like I'm doing that too.
Hey everyone, welcome to the B-Sides. I'm Eric, your host, and today for our guest we have Noel Park. Hey Noel.
안녕하세요.
Oh wow, Korean, wow. Noel, to start, I want to ask you a quick icebreaker question. So, what is your favorite item that you've bought last year?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, we constantly buy, but I would say the clothes that I bought for my grandparents to be sent back to Korea.
Wow, that's that. When was the last time you saw your grandparents?
6-7 years. Yeah, it's been a while, and I have yet to see them. So.
I'm sure it was a special thing to be able to buy that for them. That's great. Thanks, Noel.
I need something to hug on.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Fun icebreaker questions. I've never done this before.
Yes.
I'm just gonna look at the top couple things. All right. So, hey Noel, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given? Again, this is just her test. It's just to get us comfortable. So yeah.
Best piece of an advice that was given to me. Let me think.
Sure.
To be honest, just on top of my head, Rachel O and I talked about this after service, but I know it's cliche, like Bible. It's from Bible. It's Matthew 11. It was like, it's basically where before Jesus sends out his disciples to like spread the gospel, like just right before that, it was a verse of be sly as a serpent and be innocent as a dove. Yeah. And that has been resonating with me for past 3-4 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wait, so you knew Rachel 3 or 4 years ago?
Oh, no.
Okay,
no.
but you just heard about it. Oh, you just remembered about it.
So I learned about that verse like 3 to 4 years ago.
Okay, gotcha.
It stuck with me since, but then it got brought up again like today after service when we were doing the small talk. And then when you're asking me this question, it's like, I'm just trying to think. Yeah, but that's the only thing I could think of on top of my head.
So why do you think it got stuck in your heads like that?
It could be kind of related to the keyword that I'm about to bring probably, but it's like, I don't know, it's like I consider myself as a very paradoxical person in a sense, and then like Kingdom of God and just living as a Christian sometimes can feel very paradoxical. Yeah, but then, like I feel like a lot in the Bible or just in general, like they don't mention that part as much. It's more like, how, not do this or do that, but like, God propose like certain ways, right? But
like
then
strive for perfection kind of thing.
Yeah. Or like, and just like there's like a certain way, but in that process, in that journey, we meet these gray areas, right? Where you don't know how to, like, it's not even like clear in the Bible, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So
definitely.
That's why it kind of resonates.
That makes sense. Makes sense. And how often do you think you think of that not quote, that verse, I guess?
Not too often, but it's just that I think it comes up a lot when I'm interacting with like people.
Sure, you just remember it randomly from here.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I know you were having a little bit of a tough time trying to come up with a hot take. That can't be because you don't have a hot take. It's got to just because it's been hard to think about one, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, people really are into the food hot takes, or that's the first ones that come to mind. Do you think there's any food things that you do differently? Like maybe you put orange juice in your cereal, or you eat your rice with a fork or something like that. I don't know. Anything you can think of.
Food.
If not food, and while you're still thinking, I'll brainstorm some more. Maybe it's something to do with your profession, maybe something that people mischaracterize about your profession, or just a misunderstanding that most people have that you are really like adamant against, or something like that?
Tough question, but I can't pinpoint per se.
Sure.
But it's just more of, I think I always get stuck upon the area of like psychology, I guess. Like just human interaction and like how that kind of plays out.
Yeah.
Like it's not like I have any certain like hot take on it, but you know, the random questions that comes up in my mind, or it's like what I observed is like, you know, and I feel like it could be kind of relevant to Christians too, because like let's see, okay, so 99 of the times like you do good to that person, right? But then one time you mess up, and then people often kind of judge you as like, oh, like I didn't see this Noel as this kind of person. Oh, like they get taken back, kind of a thing. Whereas there's like another guy who's Tom, I guess, and then he messes up 99%. He jokes that he doesn't give a F. I don't know, it's like that. But then one time he cares about it, and then people like often get touched, and they're like, oh wow, like he has like this kind of side of him. Wow, like, you know,
right. But so you think people care a little bit more about the outlier sometimes than the bulk of the personality, I guess.
Kinda.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I don't know why that's going off. Well, good thing this was okay. Yeah.
I guess it's more like, you know, Christians, we try to really embody like Christ's teaching in our lifestyle, right?
Sure.
So we become more of a, not the latter, like the front person, like where you try to be good, and you have a lot of these trials, but then you mess up, and you know, but then often the reaction or the response from other people is kind of like, oh, like, yeah, I don't know. It's just, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's like even Christian or just in social setting too. Just, and I think I've been personally that, what's the opposite of the latter?
Former?
Yeah, former. Yeah. Yeah. I've been in that former position where, you know, I always try to kept up certain image, I guess, like back when I was young. But then, you know, how I get perceived sometimes when I do make mistakes and all that, you know, like that's kind of the response that I have observed, I guess. So it's just, I mean, it's not too like, it's just interesting, like how human psychology works, you know. So
do you feel that weight on you to not have that one instance where you mess up then? Or do you think that's kind of just a subconscious thing, and if it happens, it happens?
I think until like graduation of college, I had a kind of a absurd expectation of myself and like a standard, I guess, to keep basically. But after college, like, I mean, people who knows about it knows it. Like, I've wandered for past 2 years. Like, I don't know what's the right term, de-churched, or like I start not going to church. I was just like very in a spiritual amnesia, like didn't want to believe in God, like just rebellious and all that stuff. And then I came back, and then through that 2-3 years, I think I've gone through a time of deconstruction. So I think a lot of that kind of lessened, definitely. But it's like something I feel like I still try to, well, at least now I'm trying to be very honest about it. And like one of the kind of like motto that I have right now, like, or past like year or so, is like, I want to be honest about my unbelief. Yeah, unbelief.
Sure.
Because I think a lot of the sins, like a lot of these things, it comes from a place of unbelief, basically. Yeah, like not being able to trust God. So, yeah.
Right. And I think just being able to take a really good look and try to really understand things is probably really going to, I guess, help you. And I'm sure that's been your walk for the past couple of years or so, as you've been saying. What brought you back to the church then, if you were de-churched for so long?
Let me see. So I started coming out to CCPC, and that's okay. Actually, well, I tried out KCPC for a month and a half, KM, interestingly, because I had a connection there, but didn't find it right there.
Sure.
But the question was, what brought me back, right?
Right. Because from my opinion, right, for the way I could see it, you were kind of didn't want to have anything to do with church at the time. So then you coming back without someone specifically bringing you is interesting to me, right? Like what brought that heart change about?
I think it's very multi-component for sure. Like there's a lot of different reasons that gets mixed up. But one thing is very few people who did not give up on me through those past 2 years, because like I pushed out like literally everyone. Like there were good moments of like 6 months to like a year that I just cut it out, all the social like kind of relationship. Like it's because a lot of my main community and people are up in Jersey because I went to school in Jersey. Right. But you know, Virginia is where I originally started attending, right? So sure. That, and also just like definitely like I think it's just like a search for an answer. Yeah, search for an answer, and also this was the place that I was most familiar with.
Right.
Definitely, yeah. So yeah, so it's been a very interesting transition, and I'm still in that process of deconstruction and reconstruction, I guess.
Sure.
So yeah.
Getting that understanding. Because I noticed when I looked through your Facebook, which don't mind me, but you had a lot of articles from Desiring God, a lot of Christian art literature, right? So when you're thinking, or going back and looking through all those times, what do you think was the draw for you then of looking through and reading all this art literature? And what do you think changed between then to kind of, I don't know, not push it out, because I'm sure you're still interested, but have that mindset change?
I think it's like theory versus reality, I guess. And, you know, as if in a community setting or between friends, like you say, oh, like, what do you think like you would do if you had like millions of dollars? Or like, you know, these questions like, what if, right? And then we always like come up with, oh, I think I would do this. Like, you know, that's theoretical.
Sure.
But
when it really happens, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I already shared like back in like retreat and stuff like that too. But like because I have experienced like seasonal, like ongoing, that like recurrent depressions and all that, like that kind of really makes you experience that total depravity and show how fickle you can be, like your emotions, your thoughts, like. Sometimes it does literally make you feel very like lunatic. Like you feel like an insane person, like when you're in that deep, like bad, like position, right? Yeah. So when I faced that a lot this past 2 years, like these words of like from like, you know, desiring God, blah, blah, like all these things. Yeah. Like, it makes sense in my head, but then my heart cannot fully understand it. And I'm pretty like particular about like word and definition. And I think always the idea or like that word of, do you know, like know, like that knowledge. If I just know it with my head, but if I can't act it out, like, can I truly say that I know the truth? Like I know this, you know. So yeah, like I think that's always been I'm a little like derailing from the question.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
So on this path of knowing, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to knowing, quote unquote, do you think you've gotten better at that and at having that full understanding of these things? Or do you think it's still been a really big struggle trying to get to that point?
That's a good question. I would say, I don't know about the progress exactly, but I think my direction is better. If I were to elaborate on that, it's going back to the question of like the unbelief, like, and I think a lot of the things that I thought I knew, like with like theology and like all these, like in this setting, like as a Christian, I should do this, blah, 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 la, la, la. Like when I'm faced with the reality and like, experiencing my own hypocrisy and just like sinfulness and just these daily lives of just struggles, like, wow, like that I thought I knew to a certain level, but it's not really that I knew, like it's just the level of that knowledge, the depth of knowledge, like definitely changed a lot.
Sure.
So yeah. So that's why I say direction wise, like I think I'm able to identify and spot now that, like I think that indication of mind to heart, like if those are not connected,
Sure.
like I know that I don't have that depth of knowledge, if
Right.
that makes sense.
Right.
So like a lot of them right now is like head knowledge right now. But if I'm not convinced, like my heart, and if it does not lead to an action, then like I am careful to say like, like I know, like,
Sure. So what do you know right now? And besides the sky is blue, things like that, what are the truths that you hold evident to yourself? And just be honest about this one. Let's go to truths about yourself. What do you know about yourself?
What do I know about myself? I am very fickle. I am very unreliable. Like it's like the Bible verse, like your heart is deceitful above all things. Like that I can really agree upon. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's, and to be honest, like I know, even like that word no gets thrown a lot, like
Sure.
even by myself, but I think it will, I think it's a lot of things. Like I feel like it's very superficial that my depth of knowledge, like I like, let's see, it kind of relates to my personality, I guess, too, because like I've always been kind of like well-rounded. That's not the right word, but like my interest has always been dispersed, like,
Sure.
And like my talents and stuff like that. Like whenever you take like those tests for like, like what do you excel in, like in this area, like art, like, I don't know, just like all these things. I was always like round ball kind of a thing. Like I don't excel at particular things, but my interest is that, like, like for music, like I love jazz. I've been getting into like classic music, like it's been like giving me a lot of joy. But then like hip hop, Korean hip hop, pop, just like I listen to everything, right? So, and that, that idea, or like that's kind of prevalent in my life, like with everything. So yeah, so it only gets deeper and deeper. So, but sure. I can't really gauge like, like I know this much, because like this world is just so infinitely big, and like I am like, I'm more humbled and careful to say that, like I know this much,
Sure. So I guess more so than you knowing any specific thing, your knowledge is that you don't really fully know almost anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes
so
sense.
That relative knowledge, then, what do you think has taken precedence over another area? So, it might not be full knowledge or something, but might be more of an understanding of this means more than this.
Can you give me like just like a brief example?
Man, I gave you a tough question because I don't even know that myself. Let's see. So I know that loving people is better than serving people, for example. Let's just say giving just really random rudimentary example for that.
Hmm.
You know that being with people is better than talking to people.
So okay, in that relative,
Sure.
okay. Hmm.
Yeah, I'm throwing you some hardball questions. I did not expect to do that. I'm sorry.
I know, sorry. I brought myself into this, so it makes sense. But at the same time, I love like kind of digging in.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So relative. I would say definitely being surrounded by people is better than being alone.
Sure.
That's like, I guess, unchanging truth. I guess. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then
What about what are things you enjoy right now?
what do I? Things that I enjoy.
I enjoy climbing. I enjoy playing League of Legends.
Mhm.
I enjoy doing these podcasts with people.
I enjoy intentional like communications with people. Definitely like this. Yeah. And yeah, like I've definitely always have been into more of like these kind of deep talks and all that, but I never liked like superficial talks as much. That for sure. I enjoy. It's funny because I graduated from like farm school and like all like these scientific degrees and whatnot, but like all my current interest and what I really enjoy and love is singing, dancing, writing, like journaling, and like fashions, like or like these kind of like fashions, interior designs, like all these kind of like it's all some form of art. Basically. Yeah, that's what I enjoy.
So bringing that into the question I like to give, do you have 3 nouns that you'd like to use to describe yourself? Would you write this down? Oh,
I
that's
did
smart.
write
That's
this
smart.
down. Let me see. I had a very big dilemma of choosing those 3.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Right after this, I'll get into some questions, but
yeah. First one, I would say culture collage.
Collage. Okay.
Yeah, culture collage. Yeah, we're more collage. And second one was hard. I had to either choose from. Actually, you can help me with that maybe.
Sure.
Either Paradox, Jekyll and Hyde, or Ditto.
Oh wow!
Ditto is like Pokemon.
Pokemon, yeah.
And then last one is ISFJ, the Defender.
Okay.
It's like MBTI, the Myers-Briggs,
Sure. I think a lot of people could relate to those. I would say Jekyll and Hyde sounds the coolest, so you want to just go with that?
Sure. Why not? Yeah. It's like the attention grabber word, right?
Sure. So going to that culture collage thing, I'm assuming you mean your identity, like Korean American identity kind of, and among other things, I'm sure you went to school in New Jersey, moving back to Virginia, culture clash, right?
A lot of, yeah.
So why do you think that it embodies you as a person?
Embodies me as a person. Yeah. I was thinking,
or like, what struggles do you think you go with that too? Just anything that,
definitely finding my niche or places that I feel like at home, because I mean, I kind of had to like sit down and think about it, right? Like, why do I feel this way, and all that? But then, like I'm born out of, my dad is Buddhist, and my mom is a non-Christian family, Korean household. And then I started attending church like back in 10th grade or 11th grade. She's Madison. Woo. But I was raised up in a white Presbyterian church, VPC, near here. Yeah, as an infant in faith, and I started attending second generation Korean American like EM Presbyterian church, and then I had a brief transition going to like straight up KM style, and then I started learning how to like pray in like Korean and like like just like engaging with like a Korean Bible too. So like that was very interesting too. And then another transition to with the latest church that I was attending was what was it? Oh yeah, it was a Reformed church, and their denomination was like CRC. That had a interesting mixture of KM and EM.
Okay.
Yeah. So that church had both, but then it was very intricately, like the pastor would basically speak out like, "Yeah, 자식들아, 뭐 하는 것이야," like to the second generation.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, these second generations, like they kind of enjoy it or they kind of appreciate it. Like it's very weird. Yeah. So yeah. Like those kind of
Interesting.
things.
So beyond the cultural church differences, what do you have any other collages?
I forgot to say. Definitely, I think I have a strong 1.5 generation. Like that feel, because I don't feel like I belong to either. Like definitely not first gen. Definitely not second gen. But like I'm like exactly in the middle. I feel like almost. And then as I said, like I graduated, like what I studied and like what my life was kind of geared towards, like it's PharmD, like scientific, all this, like past 6 years. But then, like I'm just learning more and more. Like my interest and what I am passionate about and what I enjoy is like just all these forms of art. Like what is it? Yeah, back in James Madison High School and when I went to VPC, the church, like I was part of the school choir, church choir, and I was a praise leader at the time there too. And then dance, and I started breakdancing back in high school, and then I joined a Christian dance ministry called Reach, and I served there. Well, I was part of it for like, basically like 5 years there. Yeah,
Sure.
All my whole college years, and then in this writing, just journaling, and like I like poems, like that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. So, would you say that? Wait, was it breakdance or b-boy that you're into?
They're basically the same. Yeah,
Okay.
b-boy. Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
So what got you into b-boy in the first place?
I mean, it relates to basically like how I started going to church and all that. But basically, sophomore year, I started feeling very empty and felt purposeless. Like I think sophomore year high school is when my identity kind of started forming. Like I started to like think about myself, and when your identity forms, like these existential questions comes, like I'm came from Korea, and like I'm studying abroad here, sacrificing a lot of things, and it just came down to a question of like, why am I doing this? Like I don't feel happy. Like my family's not happy, and we sacrifice so much for what? Like this doesn't make us happy. But why are we like striving so hard and trying to get this American dream, whatever the thing is? When I right now, like I just don't feel happy and I don't feel purposeful, if that makes sense. So when your like core is that empty, like you want to fill up with something, and back in high school or middle school, you want to be cool and you want something to make you stand out, basically percent. And that's why I started with start joining choir, because I was always interested in singing.
Sure.
And then like I was always interested in dancing, and I went to middle school in Korea, right? Back in the time, that was the start of the shout out to Andy Han, but K-pop. Like that's where all the SNSD, 소녀시대, like that's when it popped off, and that was like a golden era, like when it's like started booming up, and I was literally there. So I got influenced by that too, probably. It's like, oh wow, like these performances and all that. So yeah.
Why do you think you enjoy it? Or I don't know if you still b-boy breakdance to this day, but why do you think, at least in the past, that you enjoyed it so much, and what benefits did it give you?
That's interesting, because I still enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought there was a moment, or there was a time period where I thought, oh, it's like this kind of period is over, kind of a thing. But now, even still now, like it's still ingrained in me. So, and could you remind me the question again? Sorry.
Just why do you enjoy b-boy, and what benefits has it given you?
I think it's very philosophical, right? But then like just on top of my head, I would say like that desire to express, in a sense, desire to express yourself, or like express, or like this kind of room for creativity if that makes sense. Yeah.
Sure.
And I feel like that desire is not just pertain to me, but it's just like, it's like a very humanistic, like, desire, like desire to be loved and desire to express oneself. Yeah. It's very, it's very core kind of a value, I guess, in a sense. Yeah.
Sure. And do you think that's been carried with you over the past, you started in 10th grade, so that's almost 10 years ago, maybe, right?
Yeah. Wait, what do you mean by carried?
So do you think that's something you felt all the way from when you first started, that it was just that sense of expressing yourself? Or do you think it was more something you did for recreation or for being cool? Because things evolve over time,
Yeah.
Over the past 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be great if you did it for the entire time for expressing. But I feel like as you get more into a hobby, sometimes you end up taking on that's more expressive because then it's more of a part of you, so.
Let me see. Definitely, when I started off these things, I think it was definitely more of a superficial reason because, like, it's glorious, right? Like, watching from outside, like watching amazing singers or like these great, like, meticulous performances. It's very just glorious and very like awe-striking kind of a thing. But then once you get into it, I think I just, at least first of all for b-boying or like breakdancing, and that basically relates to hip hop, right? Like the culture of the hip hop was very, I thought it was, this reminds me of Alex trying to relate Naruto's and all these things. Like I can give you like, I can relate all these anime to like Bible, you name it. Like, so I feel like I'm doing that too right now, but, like hip hop is, I feel like the aspect of love is what drives the community, which I found very parallel to like the gospel, because like the motto is like each one teach one. And like the breakdancing, it kind of looks a little aggressive or not on all these things, but then the core of it is always love for the community, love for the dance, and respect for the others, and
expressing, as you said.
Yeah. And through that, community, building community,
right?
So
what do you like most about the community? It seems like it's a really tight knit community, and
community.
You're saying they help teach each other, they help build one another up. Is that something that you find core?
Yeah, I think the beauty of the community. I personally think it's like complementary, and also it leads to a greater level in a sense. Like, because like you can only achieve so much as a one person in a sense, but then by being a community, like, you create a movement and you have a bigger influence, right? And you're able to achieve far more than what you can possibly do as a person, right? So I think that aspect, and I think I've always been desiring to strive for community where I can have a certain culture, cultivate certain culture where and this was what I was trying to do back in college with my pharmacy group of kids. It's like I wanted to develop like practices and like culture where we outdo one another in love, if that makes sense. So it's not like, oh, you did this much, so I will do this for you. Not that, but like, and I try to live that out too. Like, I put myself more out there and do more than what I was expected to do, in a sense that, it would trigger like a chain reaction,
right?
That because they receive that overflow of love, then that's gonna deliver to another person, and it's a very positive. It's very it's like idealistic, I know, but it creates that positive cycle and it builds up and gets people or the community in like a higher level, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Do you have any personal example of that? Of that flow from you to someone else, and that's someone else, or has it mostly just been you just tacitly understood that to be the case?
Makes me wonder. Sorry, I'm like digesting.
Angry Joe's. It's
Yeah, I know.
It's great.
Where'd I have it? It makes me wonder if that. I think it got influenced by someone. Yeah, and I think it kind of relates to one of the questions that you asked, like who was like one influential person in your life, and I did have that one person. Well, not one person, but like he was like one of the most influential. His name was Daniel H. Lee, and so the story with him and I is that I was a freshman at the time in college, and I failed one of my biology class, so I was forced retake during the summer. But I'm based in Virginia, so I have nowhere to stay, and I'll have to pay the rent. It's just too expensive, you know. And I started attending this church, PEM, like I think 2 months in. Like I did not know anyone. Like I just got to that church basically.
Sure.
Like I was just nobody, and I don't know anyone. But then I just gave it a try. They had a Facebook group, so I was like, oh, like is there anyone who can like house me for the summer period? I'll pay and all that. And this guy just like messaged me, and then he's like, hey, you can live at my place, and then do blah 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 blah, and then so yeah. But then I started living with him for like a 3 or 4 months, and like he was a track star. He basically allowed me to live at his track house, like his room, basically. And I mean, it's just like I did write down like all these things that he did for me because like it were just too many.
Sure.
So he was an upperclassman, senior when I was a freshman, track runner, and he was trying to become a physics teacher. And he allowed me to live in his track house for free. Like he insisted.
For free. Wow.
I know, and I was like, and like I had to insist, like, hey, like let me at least pay like 200. Like usually it goes at least over like 500 or 600, like just per room. Back in Jersey at the time. But then like he's so gracious, and then he let me drive his car without him. Yeah, and when I just got licensed too. I don't know where that boldness and audacity and that trust comes from, right? And like it's not like I knew him, and he took care of me, and also like it's not like he did his own thing and kind of like, oh, you do your own thing, but he always kept me in loop with the church and just in a social setting. And then and basically because I lived with him and all that, and because he kept taking care of me and kept looping me into all these things, I became kind of like that 1+1 addition to wherever he went. So like I get to see his life like inside out, not just superficial, but like what he does like when he's has free time. I don't know, it's like inside out. Yeah. And then like he was just a living example of humility, dedication, like mature love, and like he's always dedicated in becoming the background, like because like that church PEM at the time was very relatively like young church, like EM, in need of a lot of people and help and all that. But then like he was, I would say, like one of the core pillar, basically. Like the church doesn't run without him. But the thing is, like he was so dedicated of becoming a background. Like nobody at my age group, or like just most people at that church, they don't know him. That's the thing. Yeah, and it's just funny. Like whenever there's a problem, there's a problem with the mic, or there's a problem with this electricity, blah blah blah. He's the guy. He just jumps in. He troubleshoots everything. Like he's basically like a Renaissance man, right? Like he can do anything. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like he just really showed me what a Christly love would look like. Not with words, but throughout his lifestyle and his actions. And I had a privilege of just being with him like almost like 24/7, like for that 3 months. And I just get to see clearly. I was like, wow, like this is inspiring, So I think a lot rooted off from that of his influence. Yeah.
Sure. So how do you think his influence influenced how you act and relate to people now? Do you think it's made specific jumps for you in terms of your own personality, in terms of your own wants and needs?
Definitely it grew my desire to be more like a background because, back in like freshman in college or even like high school, like you want to stand out, like you want to be the cool kids and all that stuff, right? But then he was just so willingly, he was willing to become a background, and like he didn't want recognition, he didn't want fame, he didn't want any kind of those, like he didn't deal with that, and it's just really cool to see like that he like at that age, it's like it's countercultural, right?
Sure.
And I found it very fascinating. So that's definitely one of them. And also, I don't know the word here, but in Korean they have a word called 내리사랑, which means 내리 means like downward, 사랑 is love. So it's not like when he provides all these love and care for me, he doesn't expect me to return that love, but he wants me to send it down to the next generation. And that's what he kind of really tried to live on, and that just seemed very natural because that's like his style of love and everything, like it rubbed off on me. So yeah.
So were you able to express your appreciation for him maybe at the time or even going forward after that?
Yeah, it's barely. No, not really. Like at the time I was just way too young. Like it's not like I had any financial like ability or anything like that. I mean, I did try to express my best at the time. And the thing is, after graduating pharmacy, I really wanted to visit him. And then like just instead of like, I know I can be very grandiose with all these words and stuff like that, but I would rather just go and show up with like some kind of presence or like some kind of action. And I feel like that always means more. So I have always dreamed about doing that after graduating college. But then as the graduation approached, like my personal circumstances, my financial situation, everything just got rough. And then I graduated in the COVID year, right? When the COVID peaked, forced to be isolated for like good year or so. So I didn't get a chance to go, as I'm old now and older now, that, I wanted to really thank him personally and see like, hey, like this is how you made me to be. Like, I'm so grateful. You have shaped me as who I am now. Didn't get a chance yet. So that's still at the back of my mind right now. Yeah. I want to eventually do that. Yeah.
Because kind of, I see you now as very, what's the word? You're a doer. Like you'll go and do that, right? So I feel like if you now were back then and without COVID and all that, you probably would have gone and shown your appreciation. So I hope you're able to close that book, and at some point, maybe not even this year or next year, but sometime down the line, because it does seem like he played a big influence in your life up to this point. So going back to your college time, right? You said you're a pharmacy graduate, right? Is that something you still do to this day? I looked at your LinkedIn briefly. I saw you're into copywriting right now.
I'm trying to use current position as a leverage to get in. I do want to eventually get into like pharmaceutical industry, because like right now it's just more like, so my company right now is like a healthcare advertisement agency, and my job is right now more pertain to like just copywriting, not so much medical stuff, but I'm trying to build up an experience where I could jump up to this position as like a medical writer, so I can get more and more like medical knowledge involved. Like I would like to execute that and like exercise that. Yeah.
Sure. That makes sense. What is a copyright actually? I actually have no idea.
To be honest, I'm still learning because
good. We're all learning.
They deal with basically just like copies, basically like just writings. You come up with these convincing or like stimulating these writing to convince the patients or the doctors, and it basically depends on the needs of the stakeholder and the client. But you want to create some kind of like brochures, like like in medical fields, like you create brochures, websites, or whatever that kind of promotes, hey, you want to use these drugs because this is really good for your patients, like that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Makes sense. So can you talk briefly about your pharmacy experiences? So you graduated in 2020?
Mm-hmm.
And then what's been going on since then?
2 years.
3 years, technically.
3 years, actually. I feel because this is a podcast, there is a limit of how much I can share because it's not just my experiences or like what I go through, but it inevitably, involves people. But basically, 2 years, it's just straightforward. I failed the board exams and law exams, total 6 times. Yeah, 6 times, 3 each over the course of 2 years. Yeah. So, and like, each exam, along with the cost, like it takes a decent amount of time to study, right? So, yeah. So that's what I've been through. So I can just basically say like I've been through just multiples of failures, if that makes sense. Yeah. Which I wasn't expecting myself to, and that's not what my family was expecting to. So it was definitely a rough time. Yeah. And also just period of isolation. Have willingly, have unwillingly because of COVID, right? So yeah.
What do your next steps look like?
From now on?
Yeah.
My next step. To be honest, just being faithful at where I'm at. I think there's always a struggle of like trying to have control over your life and all that stuff too. Like I'm like strong J. Like I want certain things planned out, but then life has taught me that or at least in my own life, it never turned out that way. So, just taking it day by day, yeah, and just trying to build, yeah. Actually, yeah. Now that you talk about it, just trying to rebuild a good habit, yeah, one by one, yeah, like sleeping at a certain time and making sure like I have these like all these very small routines that I've been trying to build up. Like this, I started like intermittent fasting, so that, and then in the morning as I wake up, I make sure to drink water, and then after that, I make sure to drink lemon water, and then after that, if it's not the past my eating time, then I would take like coffee, like like these small promises that I try to keep it day by day and just build up those incrementally, these habits basically.
So against your natural judgment, you're trying to take it more step by step, day by day.
Yep.
Is that a unique kind of like now thing you have to do versus your past history, or do you think that's just kind of been your routine for the past while now?
I've always had routines, but it just now is in a different shape and form. But yeah, back in college too, I always had these specific routines. I would like, at this time I do this, like like for example, let me think. Third year in college. That was P1 year for me. I had some crazy schedules though, actually, like because my classes were all back to back at the time, so it was from like 8:30 to 3 p.m. or so almost. Yeah, like they were like 4. Yeah, and that's just how the pharmacy school. Yep.
Yeah.
But then because like sitting through that same, like usually same classes or like same, what is it, building, and you're there from like 8 to 3. So how many hours is that? Like 7 hours basically. Constantly engaged in like studying and try to absorb like lectures and all that stuff. Like after that, everyone's like, it's only natural to say, oh, I'm gonna take a nap. And and then after that, you just probably have to start studying, preparing exam, like do homework and stuff like that. But I've always really wanted to keep up with like my, exercises, like workouts and stuff like that, and also just like Bible reading and stuff like that. So what I did, what I did was wake up around 5 and start. Yeah. Wake up around 5. Start cooking egg and rice. So that used to be my main meal: egg and rice, with soy sauce. This is a very cost effective. Yeah, eat it right away, and then as I'm eating right away, like I do the Bible study basically for like 30 minutes or so, and then I would pray for like 30 minutes, and then those after doing all these eating and devotion time and prayer time, then it should lead me up to like 7, and that's when the gym opens. So I go to gym, and and it ends at 8, and then the class is like around 8:30 or something, right? So I come back 8:45 or something. So I come back, like take a shower in like 10 minutes, and then just burst out, and then go to class and just go through that, and then that basically was my daily routine. Yeah. And then take the classes, and after that, what is it? Transcribe and do all these things, and just like literally from 5 to 11 or 10:30, constantly engaged, and then just pass out, do the same thing. Like, yeah, that was like a whole semester basically.
Wow, you love routines. What? Sorry, what? So I can see you're at a very interesting crossroads in your life right now. I'm sure you probably didn't expect you to be over here right now, right? What do you think is keeping you going from right now, giving you that motivation to keep going forward? I'm sure it's tough to see all these setbacks in your life, right? But from what I see, you're making forward progress, right? You're not regressing back to more murky and murky depths, right? So what do you think is that drive?
So I guess the question is like, what kind of drove me at the time, like to live like that? I guess?
Sure. And continues to drive you now. Or actually, I'd say more so, not back then, more so since graduation up to this point.
Definitely family, because I feel like I owe them a lot, I mean, but it's not like they love me in expectancy of like return, but as a first son, and I know my family sacrificed a lot to come here, as a Korean American immigrants, right? I do want to reciprocate that, because like I don't think I can live with like that guilt if I weren't able to provide that. And then I definitely have been thinking about that question a lot to myself. Like I'm going through right now too. But one of the things is I am very accomplishment oriented. Like I try to always strive to improve somewhat. And to be honest, that could be related to my insecurity, or like some kind of lack of things that I had in childhood, probably, because I'm always feeling inadequate, or I like not enough. That idea of not enough. I need to I could do better. I could do better, or there's a room for improvement. I could get better at this area, that area, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, so my mom went to Korea 2 months ago, to get like surgeries and like dental treatments and stuff like that, because her health is like a little like not the best. Right after she left, like for a day or two, I felt depressed. I felt very lethargic and like waning. And I was like, is this like depression again? Or like, what is this? Like, was I just tired? Like, what is this? But then I believe it was a sense of that subject of my devotion, because the subject of my devotion was gone. I momentarily felt purposeless. So I think I placed a lot of weight in devoting my hours of love or care for someone or something, basically. So yeah, that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. Do you foresee that to continue going forward, or do you want to kind of, be more, almost independent, I would say, and because it seems like it's not that the expectations are weighty on you or anything, but you talk about that self-expression, right? Do you want to kind of move from an achievement based kind of lifestyle. Not saying that you're doing it for the achievements, but to a more self-expressive lifestyle, I guess.
That's a good question. Yes, eventually, but at the moment, I feel like there is always great amount of need for my family because the past 10 years or so, like my dad has always been in Korea. So like I was kind of forced to be like the dad figure or like kind of help out my mom in a sense. And, now because my mom devoted so much of her health and everything, like she's very weak. She's very frail now and she is in need of a lot of just daily, like she sprains her back, like, or like not break, she hurts her back like so often. Like it's kind of painful to watch sometimes. But then, when she goes through that injury, then like who's there to help her out to like prep a meal or like grab her to walk, I don't know, just like through the stairs, like I just see so much need currently. So not for now, but eventually. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I mean, we're still young too, right? So hopefully those years will come. I want to close it off here, but I want to say thanks so much for sharing. I think it's been tough to, probably to get that off your chest, but I really appreciate the bravery and the courage to talk about that stuff. And
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Talk to you guys later.